Imagine you had to make a life-changing decision about someone after meeting them for just a few minutes. How confident would you be? Welcome to CEO's Library, the 1% bookshelf, where we distill game-changing insights from the world's best business and personal development books. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a book that challenges everything we think we know about understanding people. Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. In our increasingly connected world, we're constantly interacting with strangers, in business deals, job interviews, or even just daily life. We often believe that meeting someone face-to-face gives us special insight into their character. But what if I told you that this belief might be not just wrong, but dangerously misleading? Over the next 30 minutes, we'll explore Gladwell's fascinating research and case studies that reveal why our judgments about strangers are often deeply flawed, even when we have more information about them. We'll uncover the hidden biases that affect our perceptions and learn why sometimes less information might actually lead to better decisions. Whether you're a CEO making crucial hiring choices, a manager leading a diverse team, or an entrepreneur navigating complex negotiations, understanding the pitfalls of how we judge strangers is critical to your success. So, let's dive in and unravel the paradox of talking to strangers. Our journey begins with a story that changed the course of history, a series of meetings between two men that would shape the fate of millions. The year is 1938, and tensions are rising in Europe. Nazi Germany, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, is becoming increasingly aggressive, and the world watches with bated breath to see if war can be averted. Enter Neville Chamberlain, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Chamberlain was known for his policy of appeasement, trying to avoid war by making concessions to Hitler. In September 1938, Chamberlain flew to Germany to meet Hitler face-to-face, hoping to negotiate peace and prevent the outbreak of what would become World War II. Now, put yourself in Chamberlain's shoes for a moment. You're about to meet one of the most controversial figures in Europe. You've heard the rumors, read the reports, but now you have the chance to look Hitler in the eye, to gauge his intentions directly. Wouldn't you think this personal interaction would give you unique insight? Chamberlain certainly thought so. After several meetings with Hitler, he famously declared, "I got the impression that here was a man who could be relied upon when he had given his word." He returned to the UK, waving a piece of paper and proclaiming, "Peace for our time." We now know, of course, how tragically wrong Chamberlain was. Within a year, Hitler had invaded Poland, and the world was plunged into the deadliest conflict in human history. But here's the fascinating part. While Chamberlain and others who met Hitler personally were often charmed, or at least misled by him, those who hadn't met him were often more clear-eyed about the threat he posed. This is what Gladwell calls the Chamberlain-Hitler paradox. How could this be? Shouldn't meeting someone in person, especially multiple times, give us better insight into their true nature? The answer, as Gladwell reveals, is a resounding and counterintuitive no. The problem lies in what psychologists call the illusion of transparency, our tendency to overestimate how well we can read other people's thoughts and emotions. When we meet someone face-to-face, we often believe we're getting special insight into their character. We interpret their facial expressions, their tone of voice, their body language, and we think we're seeing the real them. But in reality, these surface-level cues can be deeply misleading. Humans are complex, and our outward behavior doesn't always align with our true thoughts or intentions. Moreover, skilled manipulators, like Hitler, can use these face-to-face interactions to their advantage, presenting a carefully crafted persona that doesn't reflect their true nature. This paradox isn't just a historical curiosity. It has profound implications for modern leadership and diplomacy. Think about the high-stakes meetings between world leaders today. How often do we hear about the personal chemistry between presidents or prime ministers? How much stock do we put in these face-to-face interactions? The Chamberlain-Hitler paradox suggests we should be far more cautious about the conclusions we draw from these meetings. Just because two leaders seem to get along well in person doesn't mean their country's interests align, or that agreements made will be honored. For business leaders, this insight is equally crucial. When you're negotiating a major deal, interviewing a potential high-level hire, or forming a partnership, it's natural to want to meet in person, and there's value in that. But Gladwell's research suggests we need to be aware of our own biases in these situations. Next time you're in a high-stakes meeting, remember Chamberlain and Hitler. Remind yourself that your personal impressions, no matter how strong, may not reflect the whole truth. Instead of relying solely on your gut feeling, look for concrete evidence of past behavior and actions. Consider seeking input from those who haven't met the person, as they might provide a more objective perspective. This doesn't mean we should never trust our instincts or that face-to-face meetings are worthless. Rather, it's about being aware of our limitations and biases. By understanding the Chamberlain-Hitler paradox, we can make more balanced, informed decisions in our interactions with strangers. As we move forward in our exploration of talking to strangers, keep this paradox in mind. It sets the stage for a deeper understanding of why our judgments about others can go so wrong, even when we think we have all the information we need. Now, let's shift gears and step into a very different scenario, one that plays out in courtrooms across the country every day. Imagine you're a judge, and it's Monday morning. Your docket is full of bail hearings, decisions about whether to release defendants before their trials or keep them in jail. As you sit on the bench, a parade of strangers comes before you. For each one, you have to make a critical decision. Are they a flight risk? Are they likely to commit another crime if released? The stakes are high. Release the wrong person, and you might be putting the community at risk. Keep the wrong person in jail, and you're unjustly depriving someone of their freedom. You have access to a wealth of information: the defendant's criminal record, their ties to the community, statements from the arresting officers. You can look each defendant in the eye, hear them speak, observe their demeanor. Surely, with all this information at your fingertips and your years of experience, you're well equipped to make the right call, right? This is the judge's dilemma, and it's at the heart of one of Gladwell's most provocative arguments in Talking to Strangers. Because what Gladwell reveals, through rigorous research and compelling case studies, is that more information doesn't always lead to better judgments. In fact, sometimes it can make our judgments worse. Let's break this down. In theory, having more information about a person should help us make better decisions about them. That's why we conduct interviews for jobs, why we meet business partners in person before signing deals, why judges see defendants face to face instead of just reading reports. But here's the catch. Our brains aren't perfect information processors. We're subject to all sorts of biases and mental shortcuts that can lead us astray. When we're presented with a lot of information, especially in a face-to-face setting, we often focus on the wrong things. For instance, in the case of bail hearings, judges might be swayed by a defendant's appearance or manner of speaking, factors that have little to do with their likelihood of showing up for trial or committing another crime. They might overemphasize certain parts of a criminal record while downplaying others. Or they might be influenced by their own mood, the time of day, or dozens of other factors that have nothing to do with the case at hand. Gladwell cites a fascinating study that illustrates this point. Researchers looked at the decisions made by experienced judges in bail hearings and compared them to a simple algorithm. The algorithm only had access to a few key pieces of information: the defendant's age and criminal record. The judges, on the other hand, had all the information we discussed earlier, plus the benefit of seeing and hearing from the defendants directly. The results were shocking. The algorithm consistently made better decisions than the judges. It was better at predicting which defendants would show up for their court dates and which ones would commit crimes if released. And remember, it was working with far less information than the judges had. First, it's important to understand why the algorithm performed so well. The key lies in its consistency and its focus on the most relevant factors. The algorithm didn't get tired or hungry. It wasn't swayed by a defendant's appearance or manner of speaking. It didn't have unconscious biases based on race or gender. It simply looked at the data points that have been shown to be most predictive of future behavior and made its decisions based solely on those. The judges, on the other hand, were subject to all the cognitive biases and inconsistencies that come with being human. They might have been influenced by factors that seem important, but actually have little predictive value, like how remorseful a defendant appeared or how well they articulated their case. They might have made different decisions based on whether it was morning or afternoon, or whether they'd just heard a particularly troubling case. This doesn't mean that the judges were bad at their jobs or that human judgment is worthless. Far from it. What it does mean is that in certain types of decisions, particularly those that involve predicting future behavior based on past data, well-designed algorithms can outperform human experts. It also highlights a crucial point. Sometimes, less information, focused on the most relevant factors, can lead to better decisions than more information that includes potentially misleading or distracting elements. So, what does this mean for you as a business leader or professional? It has profound implications for how we approach decision-making in various contexts. Think about hiring decisions, for instance. Many companies put candidates through multiple rounds of interviews, believing that more face time will lead to better hiring choices. But Gladwell's research suggests this might not be the case. Instead of relying heavily on interviews where unconscious biases can creep in, consider putting more weight on objective measures of past performance or skills tests relevant to the job. Or consider negotiations. We often believe that meeting in person is crucial for striking a deal. And while face-to-face meetings can build rapport, they can also lead us to make judgments based on irrelevant factors like how much we personally like the other party. Instead, focusing on the concrete terms of the deal and each party's past behavior in similar situations might lead to better outcomes. In risk assessment, whether you're considering a new market entry or evaluating a potential partnership, be wary of putting too much stock in personal interactions. Instead, look for hard data on past performance, market conditions, and objective risk factors. The judge's dilemma teaches us a valuable lesson. More information isn't always better. What matters is having the right information and interpreting it correctly. As leaders, we need to be aware of our own biases and the limitations of face-to-face interactions. We need to structure our decision-making processes to focus on the most relevant factors and to counteract our tendency to be swayed by irrelevant or misleading information. This doesn't mean we should never trust our instincts or that personal interactions are worthless, but it does mean we should approach these interactions with a healthy dose of skepticism. We should seek out objective data to complement our personal impressions, and we should be willing to question our judgments, especially when the stakes are high. As we continue to explore Gladwell's insights, keep the judge's dilemma in mind. It's a powerful reminder that when it comes to understanding strangers, our intuitions can often lead us astray. But by being aware of these pitfalls, we can make better, more informed decisions in our professional and personal lives. But before we get carried away with the power of algorithms, it's crucial to recognize their limitations. The Bayes algorithm worked well because it was designed to predict a very specific outcome, whether a defendant would show up for court or commit a new crime, based on data that had been shown to be relevant to that outcome. Not all decisions can be reduced to such clear-cut predictions. Moreover, algorithms can perpetuate or even amplify existing biases if they're trained on biased data. For instance, if an AI hiring tool is trained on data from a company that has historically favored male candidates, it might continue to show bias against women unless this is specifically accounted for. There's also the question of ethics and accountability. When a judge makes a decision, we can ask them to explain their reasoning. When an algorithm makes a decision, especially if it's a complex AI system, it can be much harder to understand why it reached a particular conclusion. So, where does this leave us? The Bayes algorithm study doesn't suggest that we should hand over all our decision-making to machines. Rather, it points to a future where human judgment and algorithmic analysis work in tandem. As leaders, our job is to understand the strengths and weaknesses of both approaches and to know when to rely on data-driven methods and when human insight is crucial. We need to be open to challenging our assumptions about the value of face-to-face interactions and gut feelings. At the same time, we need to be critical consumers of algorithmic tools, understanding their limitations and potential biases. The future of decision-making lies not in choosing between humans and machines, but in finding the right balance between the two. By leveraging the consistency and data processing power of algorithms while still applying human wisdom, creativity, and ethical judgment, we can make better decisions and lead our organizations more effectively. As we wrap up our deep dive into Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers, let's take a moment to reflect on the key insights we've uncovered and how they can transform the way we interact with and judge others in our professional and personal lives. We began with the Chamberlain-Hitler paradox, which taught us that face-to-face interactions, even multiple ones, don't always lead to accurate judgments about a person's true nature or intentions. This challenges our instinctive belief that meeting someone in person gives us special insight into their character. Finally, we delved into the Bayes algorithm study, which demonstrated that in certain contexts, a well-designed algorithm with limited data can outperform human experts with access to much more information. This challenges our assumptions about the value of human intuition and experience in decision-making. So, what do these insights mean for you as a leader, entrepreneur, or professional? First and foremost, they call for a healthy dose of humility and skepticism when it comes to our ability to judge others. We need to recognize that our instincts and first impressions, no matter how strong, can be misleading. This doesn't mean we should never trust our gut, but rather that we should balance our intuitions with objective data and diverse perspectives. Secondly, these insights underscore the importance of structured decision-making processes. Instead of relying solely on face-to-face interactions or subjective impressions, we should strive to incorporate more objective measures into our evaluations of others, whether we're hiring, negotiating, or assessing risks. Thirdly, we should be open to leveraging technology and data-driven approaches in our decision-making. While algorithms shouldn't replace human judgment entirely, they can be powerful tools for overcoming our biases and processing large amounts of information consistently. Here are some actionable steps you can take to apply these insights in your professional life. 1. When making important decisions about people, create a structured evaluation process that focuses on relevant, objective criteria. Don't rely too heavily on interviews or personal interactions. 2. Seek out diverse perspectives. If you're assessing someone, consider getting input from people who haven't met them in person, as they might provide a more objective view. 3. Be aware of your own biases and the limitations of face-to-face interactions. Regularly challenge your assumptions and first impressions. 4. Explore how data-driven tools or algorithms might complement your decision-making processes. This could be in areas like hiring, risk assessment, or strategic planning. 5. When using data or algorithms, be critical. Understand their limitations and potential biases, and use them as tools to inform your decisions, not to make them for you. 6. Foster a culture of evidence-based decision-making in your organization. Encourage team members to back up their judgments with concrete data or examples. 7. In negotiations or high-stakes meetings, prepare thoroughly with objective information rather than relying on your ability to read the other party in person. Remember, the goal isn't to completely disregard human judgment or the value of personal interactions. Rather, it's to recognize their limitations and complement them with more structured, data-driven approaches. By doing so, you can make more accurate judgments about the strangers you encounter in your professional life, leading to better hiring decisions, more successful negotiations, and more effective risk management. As we conclude, I encourage you to reflect on your own experiences. Think about times when your judgments about someone were proven wrong, or when you made a decision based on a personal interaction that didn't turn out as expected. How might the insights from talking to strangers have changed your approach? The ability to accurately assess and interact with strangers is a crucial skill in our interconnected world. By understanding the complexities and pitfalls of these interactions, as Gladwell so compellingly lays out, we can become more effective leaders, better decision-makers, and more understanding human beings. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. I hope these insights will serve you well in your professional journey and beyond. Remember, the next time you find yourself making a judgment about a stranger, pause and consider, what might you be missing? If you found this episode valuable, I encourage you to pick up a copy of Talking to Strangers to dive even deeper into Gladwell's fascinating research and insights. You can find a link to purchase the book on Amazon in the episode description. This is CEO's Library, the 1% Bookshelf, helping you distill the world's best business and personal development books into actionable insights. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep growing.